Hello and welcome to the Learning and Design Masterminds Vodcast. In this vodcast, we explore the world of instructional design and relevant topics for your career. I am Daisy Annie Barreto, your host, and with me, someplace on the screen, is our co-host, Sherry Conklin, and I'm excited to be your guide as we navigate the many important topics in our field. In each episode, we will discuss the latest trends, case studies, and practical tips from our professionals and alumni in the field that can help you deliver exceptional learning experiences. Here with us today is Alexandra Hartline, an MIT alumnus. And Alexandra, could you please tell us more about your position, where you're currently working, and what you do?
Sure. Well, first, thank you both for having me. It's nice to be back. This is my second time on the podcast. And I am a graduate of the MIT program from December 2021, so it's been a couple years. And I currently work at Biogen as a senior learning consultant. And in my role, I sit in HR, and I'm part of the broader enterprise learning and development team. And I have an intern who reports to me, an instructional design intern. And so in that role, I, um, investigate performance issues, training issues, and then seek to remedy those through possible interventions such as e-learning, videos, instructional guides, etc. And I do that on a global level, so for broader HR initiatives that apply to all employees, and also on a more functional level for departments across Biogen who need very specific support in areas of instructional design um, for the services I just mentioned. And I've been here at Biogen for 2.5 years. I originally interned here in 2021, left for a while, and then returned. And it's been a wonderful experience so far. I hope you all, keep on the lookout for the Biogen internship because it's a great way to really experience instructional design in the corporate world.
Thank you, Alexandra, for just providing that background. One things that we always notice is when we are in that early career process and maybe someone that is either graduating or have recent graduate or is like just a new instructional designer. What are some of the essential skills that you think that they should master or they should have cultivated in their program? And maybe you can talk about how have you cultivated these skills in your career so far?
Okay, great question. I think that if you can have some client-facing experience, really as much as possible, those are great opportunities to build your consulting skills because it's really important to gain those active listening skills where you're able to spend time and really listen to your clients, listen to what the issues are. It's important to, as part of that process, not diagnose the problem too early, because we want to make sure we understand the context, and everything that's at stake. I think it's also important in that process as a consultant to build that trust with your client and follow through on what you say and realize it's really not about you, it's about them. It's about them, it's about whatever their needs are and the issue that they're trying to tackle. So really putting your place in your customer's shoes. And that's all part of consulting with them. So definitely get that client-facing experience early on and throughout your program so that when you graduate, you can say that you've had that experience as you are seeking positions out in the work world.
Thank you,
Oh, I have
Alex.
more if you want me to continue.
Oh, yes, sure. Sorry.
Sure. I think also part of that is just realizing that we are not order takers here. So coming in from a position of knowledge and experience, listening, and then eventually, offering potential interventions to hopefully solve the issue, but not just being here with a menu and just making an e-learning because they request it, right? So coming in the position of an advisor, and someone here to really think broadly with them in partnership, I think is a critical part of that as well. And then something I've done to help cultivate that is, I've asked to shadow meetings of, colleagues here at Biogen, even just to see how they consult and notice how they interact with clients, write down consulting language. I've done this a lot as well, writing down consulting language that I think is effective um, through conversations to really help dig into what the true need is. And then if you find someone successful, and I've done this as well, meet with them one-on-one and ask them how they do it.
Those are great tips, Alexandra. I think it's good to know how to one get the actual experience of working with clients, shadowing other people, and especially those that have been successful or something that, hey, this is the career that I want to seek out once I'm done and completing my program. But also, even those one-on-one meetings can be very helpful for them. Like, is this a position or an area that I really want to move forward? Because sometimes we don't know what all entails, right? So sometimes it's good to have that perspective from the other in that sense. And my next question for you, and I don't know, I think like you kind of like touched base on this, so I don't know if you want to add anything else. Maybe what current students can do to prepare themselves for their first job once they're out of grad school. So I don't know if there's anything else in addition to some of the things that you've mentioned that you wanted to add to.
I think it's important to take the change management course in addition to the project management course at UNCW because it has just been invaluable so far in terms of, well, first of all, gaining trust from my clients because when they found out I have some management experience, it seems to create more trust in terms of being able to see the project through, support maintenance of the project, whatever it is. And being really active in the change piece. And so that's been really nice. I really loved the course when I took it. So I definitely recommend that. And I would say, start thinking about ways that you can kind of automate or have processes in place that are going to help you at work. Like I now have things like email templates that I just reuse over and over again and just, fill in as needed or get yourself comfortable things with like Microsoft Planner, Microsoft OneNote. You're most likely going to work in a place that, has the Microsoft suite. Have examples of project charter that you like to use or a debrief document. So, if you have something you really love to use in grad school that was effective for you, think about bringing that over to your next job. So keep in mind what's worked for you in the past that you can leverage in the future without reinventing the wheel.
Thank you. Those are great tips, and especially courses that are very important, and I know that change management and project management are those that people sometimes often don't have that skill set. They don't come with that skill set, and it's good to know what are the best practices, in order to engage with these kinds of projects once you have to tackle them. Um, Another thing that I wanted to ask you is that as instruction designer, you're often required to work with subject matter expert and other stakeholders. So what is your approach to fostering collaboration and ensuring everyone is aligned? Everybody's in the same page, so there's no miscommunication, misunderstanding, especially as we are getting towards the end of a project.
So from the beginning, it's really critical that all stakeholders are present, especially in that kickoff meeting, but really for all meetings. And so if there is an issue where someone has not attended that kickoff meeting, I think it's important to just reschedule it. Because you really want to be able to level set with everyone in terms of completing a project charter, a RACI, any other of those initial documents that you need. Because I have seen issues pop up if not everyone was present in the kickoff meeting or in those early stages. I think it's also important as a project manager to have consistent approach to how you write, when you send follow-up emails and status updates, how you run your status update meetings, especially by calling out action items so that everyone on the project team is falling into your rhythm. right? They know exactly how you work, what to expect from you, when they're going to get your emails, when you're going to be sharing your screen and going over status updates, how your meetings, just the flow of everything is really helpful for them. And part of that as well includes managing the document, like the document management, document organization process. So I highly recommend that you own that. So you create the folder structure, you share it with people, and then you're able, when you manage that, everyone's just kind of working within your rhythm, and that can be very helpful. And then I think a last thing that's important to keep in mind is being a good steward of the content that you receive. So um, SMEs are coming at us, from very busy contexts, and we're working with, in some cases, very critical content. And so it's important that you provide a learning perspective on how the learner is going to experience that content. But definitely don't make any significant changes without SME collaboration. Really approach that conversation from a point of seeking to understand rather than wanting quick answers or you want to change something because it's better for the learner. Like take a moment to seek to understand from them the content and so you can find the best way to deploy it. So just being good stewards of what you receive and very careful with any changes you might make can really help to foster collaboration, especially with very busy SMEs that are out there.
Those are great tips. And I think Sherry has a question or a follow-up question.
So I know in our program, we always have group work in almost every class. Can you discuss some of the soft skills or skills that you've taken away from having these groups? Because I know a lot of times, students don't want to work in groups, understandably, because they're working adults. But what are some of those soft skills or skills that you were able to take away and apply to your new job by having that kind of group work?
Hmm.
Sorry.
It's been a while since I've been in the program. I would say I really love that we always had to have a project charter. I would say that was true for most of our courses in the MIT program, because it just made it seamless when I started working and where that was just part of the job or part of projects that I was on. So the fact that we required them for the program was really helpful. And also the fact that we were reminded to double check our project charter just to verify we were on the right track was very helpful. So yeah, that's probably the main thing that stands out right now.
Thank you. And it's good to, like as I mentioned, the more that you and your stakeholders are on the same page in strategies and skills that you can bring together to make that process smoothly, it's very important. One of the things that I was gonna also ask you, Alexandra, is that, and I have had this experience before in the past where, you create this project, amazing project, and then you get feedback. Sometimes not always positive feedback. Sometimes like the feedback is kind of like, negative. It can be sometimes even harsh, and we need to learn how to not take things personal because it's not about you, it's about the product, right? So that's my question to you. How do you handle feedback and even sometimes differing opinions from stakeholders during that development process?
Yeah. Well, that definitely happens quite a lot, just differing opinions, especially if someone joins the project late or someone's catching up because they were out of the office for a while. It can be hard to, getting all those different pieces of feedback at different times and managing, what they're actually saying. So I think that in the review process, it's really important to address differing feedback in a meeting. If you address feedback via email, you just start creating an email chain that could be endless and actually just make the project take longer. And no one enjoys that. So, and things get lost. And so, if there are differing opinions, I think it's pretty critical to, for example, it's an e-learning, share your screen, you're looking at Review 360, you're looking at the slide they're talking about, and you talk about that feedback, and everyone is in the meeting, and you just solve the issue there. And because you don't want to have an endless email chain. that just slows everyone down.
Thank you. And I think like that is a good way of tackling this problem, which is like, let's everybody in the meeting, and let's share and then make sure everybody's on the same page before we continue and moving on, so we don't have problems later on as the product is being completed and developed. My next question to you, it's more about onboarding new technologies. And I wanted to gauge, how do you evaluate new technologies to determine their suitability for instructional purpose? And maybe if you can share an example of a time you successfully integrated some of these cutting edge technologies in your work.
So in terms of onboarding new technologies, the organizational need is absolutely critical. So we need to consider our offices around the world, and those learners that are there, and what their needs are for training and the accessibility of the tools for them. And specifically digging in the use cases, because that's really what whomever is the financial owner of that tool at some point will want to know, is what are the use cases. So really taking time to think about use cases specific to your organization, and if those use cases are sufficient and can be met by the tool. And so that's really important. Also, it's important to think about how the tool could help you save time, money, effort. And then also looking at the available budget. So can you even afford it? If so, how many licenses? And then also thinking about where the new tool fits within the broader ecosystem, because you already for sure have other tools available. So how does this new tool fit with what you have? So you want to make sure you're not duplicating tools. And you also want to think about, how are you going to combine these tools down the road? So an example for me is onboarding Synthesia. It's an AI generated video development software. And when I came in, there was an effort to eventually bring on Synthesia. At the time, funding was not available. We eventually did get funding for that, so we brought it in fall of 2022, and it was incredibly exciting. And it really did, meet a lot of the needs, especially in terms of language needs, training needs, for our global audience. And then along with Synthesia, it's not just the onboarding of a tool, but it really was a lot of meeting with customer success managers, to learn about the tool, going on road shows within the company just to talk to people about Synthesia and how we could use it, how it can help their teams. And also thinking about how it works with our LMS, different opportunities for combining the tools with the existing tools. And then finally, going on road shows with existing learning teams, and eventually bringing on more licenses, and then maintaining our tool and continuing to learn as the tool itself continues to update, which is certainly true with Synthesia. I don't know if anyone's accessed it yet, but it's a very exciting tool with lots of new features coming out, I think almost every quarter.
That's great. We've seen a little bit of how it works, and I know that the stool has a price, right? As you mentioned, they can be very pricey, and but I think the capability of, just if you don't need or cannot afford having an actor and do that voiceover, having AI just to be able to create that introduction, or even for a case scenario that you create in your e-learning, right? Having that AI generated person to be that agent, the pedagogical agent is important and enhance your e-learning product, right? So I think that's a really good example, as you're mentioning, that people maybe can think about, and it doesn't need to be because I know this one is very high end and also can be pricey, but any tool, and if we approach with the same way as you have shared here, I think this is good example on how people can do that later on as they're working with cutting edge technology. And my last question for you is if you could turn back on time, if if you can meet yourself, in the past as you're just getting to the program, you know, starting in, what kind of advice you would tell yourself, or what would you think it would be important for you to know, um, any tips, or just what are your thoughts?
I probably would have told myself to start my portfolio sooner. Because
Okay,
to be
tell
honest,
why, tell why.
so when I was interviewing for my internship at Biogen, I hadn't quite had my portfolio ready. And so the weekend before the interview, I locked myself in my room, and that's what I did for the weekend. And I had, well, my boyfriend at the time, now my husband, bring me food, and that was what I did for 2 days, was make my portfolio, and it turned out all right, clearly. But I think it would have been better for me to have started it sooner, and so that when you're applying for roles, whether they're positions as interns or otherwise, to just have it ready. And so don't don't spend your weekend locked in your room making your portfolio if you can help it.
That is a great advice, Alex. I think it's such a great advice, because I do think a lot of us can be like, oh, I'll do that towards the end, right? But you never know when an opportunity might come up, right? If it is either an internship or an actual position that you want to pursue, if you don't have that ready, or at least the skeleton, right? Like the outline, everything kind of the pieces pretty much there, then it's going to be harder. Then you're going to have to really lock yourself and just do it, which then can be, more overwhelming, So, as they like to say, sometimes we need to go piece by piece, bird by bird, instead of trying to have the whole castle ready at once. So I think that's a great advice.
Great. Yeah, I'm glad I could help. I hope everyone, can try and get started a little bit earlier just to give yourself a head start. And again, it's kind of like, go slow to go fast
Yeah.
approach.
Yes, and then I do know that even in some of the classes now, we do have them starting early, in some of those entry level classes, but it's still is up to each individual, each person to just continue. And so I just hope that if they're watching, if they're listening, to this podcast, that they can start taking advantage of what you're just saying, and then start, okay, I'm not going to stop just on this class. I am going to continue to build up, and on each class. So then it doesn't become an overwhelming task all at once the opportunity appears.
Absolutely. Yeah, exactly.
Well, I have to say, thank you so much for taking the time to be here with us and share your knowledge, your expertise. I think those insights are invaluable. I think I cherish them, and I hope the students they're listening, or even if people are not students, but if they are instructional designer, if they're listening and watching, that they can take those tips. And start applying in their career, or in the process of building their career. So I thank you so much for being here with us today.
Yeah, happy to help. Thank you.
And thank you so much. And I hope you all that are watching, thank you for watching this podcast with Alex Hartline. Thank you.